What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, once again, giving it to you the raw way. Now, let's talk about a couple of things that you guys probably didn't see or didn't notice. And um, this is the truth behind the TV show Friends. Friends! You gotta love Friends. How could you not? When Friends came out and they were trying to do the TV show Friends, a lot of people don't know that this show was being pinned and trying to come out for a long time. And a lot of people think that Living Single and all of these, some of the cast members of Living Single believe that Friends was a ripoff of their show. And I'm here to let you know that's not true. They didn't just cook up Friends and say, you know what would be a great idea? Look at this Living Single show that came out a year before our show. They saw Living Single come up with a show and they decided to go down that avenue. But they were like, friends living together in the same loft. It's the same version of our show. But what people don't realize is that this show is almost a repetitious show that is based off of Seinfeld. The success of Seinfeld, while having friends live in the building, basically hang out and do these wacky things, and just seeing people living, doing things together, no real full, you know, no like direction at all. Seinfeld was so free of that, and it was just funny. And that's what made Seinfeld exciting and people were interested because they went through these things in their everyday life. Mostly TV shows are set up where there's a big scenario, something happens, blah, blah, blah. These things were just normal situations of people just doing nothing. So a lot of people were inspired by the Seinfeld movement, which led to the creation of yours truly, Friends. Now, when they were casting Friends, David Crane, who created this, and they did the Soprano series, and a lot of people were producing that with Adam Chase. But before that even came to the forefront in the early 90s, they said, you know what we need? We need to focus on creating this show that we have that's pretty fresh about just being in a building, friends sharing a loft. And this was, Friends. This was it. So now that they're sharing this loft and they're doing these wonderful things and everybody's having a blast, sky's the limit. The writing process is coming along. And when they put the show together and got the cast, you know, they wanted to make the star of the show Jennifer Aniston, But first, it was supposed to be everyone was the star. Getting Jennifer Aniston to do it was key because at this time, Jennifer Aniston wasn't a big star, but she was an emerging star, and when you're an emerging star, And this is like the beginning of her career, basically. She had just did Along Came Polly. She was in Bruce Almighty. She did Rockstar, The Good Girl. She was in a few movies that a lot of people just was like, oh, okay. I don't know who these people are just trying to come. Sorry about that. She was in a few movies that really didn't go over. She was still just in the mix, doing shows and television. And first thing I ever seen her in was the Ferris Bueller television show that lasted one season. But we'll talk about that later. She played Ferris' sister in the show, in case you guys didn't know. Then she was in Leprechaun. And that was it. I didn't really remember her into anything else until she did Picture Perfect. And she was the big movie star at the time coming into her own. So her landing the Friends job was, like, wow, she landed, you know, the Friends job. That's huge. So, and that was coming off her co-starring with Adam Sandler, not Adam Sandler, but Ben Stiller. Sorry about that. Now, with the writers landing her for the role of Friends, they're thinking 4, maybe 5 years. They hopefully can get a show that can last, maybe 4 or 5 years. She's done shows before, and she didn't. No one saw this show being what it became. So when they got Courtney Cox and Lisa Kudrow, what's her name, Kudrow, they got her on board. It was there's a big difference in the level of stars because at the time she had been in some movies, but she wasn't a real standout. She was known from the Scream movies. Gail Weathers from Scream. That's where she made David Arquette and everything else. But that's where Courtney Cox was, doing her thing. But not quite the breakout star. But 3,000 Miles to Graceland is my movie. If you've never seen that movie, go check that out. You'll love that. And like I said, with Lisa Kudrow, another person who really was, a television driven person, known for writing and everything else. A lot of people thought her career was completely fried after she did Marcy X, which was her big starring movie, which was a disaster and basically torpedoed her movie and film career on the big screen. And see, at that time, television stars were treated differently than movie stars. And it was like a step down. Oh, we're going to the three light camera now, instead of the big time, it's you gotta know how to look. It's a little different than television from actual film. So when she went to television, back from, what she used to do, television, so she went back towards it. It was like, wow, I'm glad to have this, something to pay the bills. So, like I'm trying to get you to understand is that a lot of these guys weren't big known stars when they came over. The biggest star on the show basically was Aunt Jennifer Aniston. And as this show, got going right off in the first season, a lot of people liked the show. It was fresh. The writing was there. There was only like one major problem, with the show. And the major problem with this show at the beginning was everyone's trying to find out who their character is. So they're working with the writers to try to develop on, what we're going to do here with our characters and try to develop something of anything. Now, when the Band of Brothers miniseries was out, David Swimmer, who's a known Chicagoan, made a movie here called Kissing a Fool in like 98. And that's when I first seen him, met him personally. And he was a great human being, very down to earth, very much traditional Jewish type of upbringing, mostly hung out in most of the Jewish areas and, did a lot of comedy, Second City, things of that nature. But he was more into developing, writing, producing. So I saw him like mostly leaving the big screen early and getting behind the camera and doing more writing and producing shows than actual acting from when I met him. Then he lands Friends. And what happened with Friends? It becomes one of the greatest shows in television history. And the reason why it became that is very simple. The writing, and people took time to develop the character, and they cared about the actual performances that was happening on the screen. Now, when we look back at Friends, they had the character of Joey. And Joey was that loony. He always gotta have the oddball, weird character, the one that hits on everyone, and this is his approach. That was Matt LeBlanc's drive. He was to be the wild card that everybody's gonna relate to, and actually be the one that people say, we like this guy. He's wow, and he hits on all the ladies. So as he's hitting on all the ladies, the show's taking off. Rachel's the kind of try to hold it together girl. Got the three girls, the three guys, Matthew Perry and David Swimmer basically is a doctor, but plays his character to perfection. People related to them as they can relate to these guys being friends in real life. And their relationship was very close. Now, here's the problem. People's personal lives are coming around as the show is becoming a major hit. The contracts are up to be renewed. The show takes right off. It's averaging 25 million people watching it a week. It is crazy, crazy right now as far as where it's going in direction. So, watching her career go to a whole new level, the person Rachel Green character is like the standout character, Jennifer Aniston. So Aniston character is standing out the most. but but during this time, she had a haircut that stood the test of time. They've named it the Rachel. Her haircut was her trademark to fame. People were out there getting her haircut, her hairstyle, got to get the Rachel. Girls were losing it. And She was People's Magazine's most beautiful person in the world. She was becoming an intriguing person, and she got in a relationship and started dating Brad Pitt. The show is up for renewal, and while everyone has different agents, and even though they all were friends, David Swimmer and his agent convinced David to get everyone involved before they went in for negotiations of their contracts. This was a very strategic move because all of them had different agents, and he went and talked to them personally and said, we need to have a meeting, and they all got together and they all spoke and said, all of our contracts are coming up at the same time. And I think we need to all negotiate for the same amount of money. Because if one person ends up getting paid more than the others, we don't want to have that and bring that coming to work. It will ruin the show and it'll torpedo it. And everyone in here is going to say this is not going to be a problem. But down the road, it's always going to be some confliction. It's going to be tabloids about it. And we all are going through an adjustment period because we've never had this before. Like, this was the first television show in which stardom was born. As big as Seinfeld was, and I mean, Seinfeld was huge, it was never like this. Dave Seinfeld wasn't going to be on your People's Magazine and these were young couples. People thought they were sexy and hot. So they were going to be in the Star magazine every day. They were going to be in People magazine every day. It was not going to stop. It was consistent that they were going to be it. This was the end of the road. So when she starts dating Brad Pitt, and all of these things are going on in their lives, before this even took place, they agreed and negotiated a deal to come together, and they all got paid the same amount of money. The agents all agreed, got together, and David Swimmer got them all together, and they went in and they all negotiated a deal together that gave them a collective bargaining piece that they were going to be paid more and more each year. Everyone thinks they just got $1 million per episode a year. It didn't happen. Once the show kept going on, because they were part owners of the show, they had a collective bargaining agreement in place that let them buy into the show, that they will become part owners of it. And therefore, it allowed them to have their salaries increase. By the time they got to season 9, they were making like $1 million an episode, and they made a pretty penny when this thing was over. They all got a lot of money. It was the most expensive half hour on television. You just think 6 people right there, $6 million an episode. But they could afford it because they were making that money. They were making that much money off of the show. So everyone remembers this, and it's led to a lot of TV shows negotiations getting screwed up because everybody wanted to follow this format, and they didn't have the kind of pull, the kind of power, the kind of friendship, and it led to a lot of disruption on a lot of people's shows. Now, the money has been negotiated. Everyone's satisfied, right? Now, what happens with a show when you start going into other seasons is that things get stale, things get bored. You add new characters, you add new faces, you add new names to the situations, to the problems, to the issues. So now you got new characters coming in. You got new directions of where the characters is going. And Joey knew the character Joey. He knew right away, like, I got to switch it up because if I don't switch this, everyone's going to say I'm done for. So Matt LeBlanc said, I can't be Joey, keep hitting on all these women because eventually they're going to get rid of me. The writers, they're going to write me out because it's going to get stale. The crowd is going to get tired of me because I'm just hitting on every girl that pops up on the screen. I got to have some limits to my characters. So they would go to the creators of the show and complain. Whenever there was a problem, they go to complain to the creators. So the writers and the actors, they will always say work with the writers first before you start going to the producers and the creators and go to Kaufman and getting them involved because they're just going to get pissed, and Martha's got to sit there and go, okay, David Crane and then Adam Chase, and all these guys, they're like, look, Martha and David, those two are in charge of all the writing, and all these other writers are there, just they're there, but they're trying to go through the process with them. So of course Adam Chase ended up working more on Sopranos and doing things of that nature after about 6 7 years, but he was constantly warring with changing of characters and changings of pace of what was happening with the show. So Adam was a major writer on this show. Well, you got to write for 6 different characters. You need people to, you know the character, know what's going on. You have different writers come in, they have different ideas. So they made Joey hit on women, but every other woman, like some women he didn't like, certain type he wouldn't hit on, because it'll get old, it'll get stale, and then you can't have a show like that. Then they tried to speed things up. There's a lot of things didn't work. Lisa Kudrow's pregnancy had to get worked into the show. She ended up with a baby. She couldn't go to the UK because she was pregnant when they did the episode with Fergie. Um, that's how big the show was. They moved it to London. Then they had the episode in which they were gonna put Joey in a serious relationship with Rachel and show Joey has grown up years down the road, and it was like we wanted to see him grow up, but not with a person that we've seen him with all this time, and like Rachel. And they were so against this. Nobody wanted to see Joey date Rachel. It just was no way. So when he gave her a ring and this thing, and they both characters when it was written was against it. They both went to Chase. Jennifer Aniston was against it, and definitely Matt LeBlanc. But it became a bigger problem because her character became bigger than life, and now she agreed to this deal, and she was worth a lot more. Jennifer Aniston could have gotten way more money on Friends than anybody else on that show. The other cast and crew wouldn't have gotten as much as she got. Once she got with Brad Pitt and they became a power couple, and then they got married in 2000, the writers on the show had to be a little bit more respectful, or she became a A-list celebrity star instantly. She's the most beautiful person in the world. You got all the extra media coming around. They want to see if Brad Pitt's going to be around. He appeared on one of the episodes of the show, and it galvanized the entire show. The people that were supporting the show were even more. The fans are pouring in droves. People went crazy for Friends. It was fanatic. Now, Friends was never a show I could watch a couple of episodes, but I could never binge watch Friends. And they had some episodes I really didn't care about, and I kind of felt the writing was like a little all over the place, especially in the last years. Shows like that in the last years, you don't have the same writers. Writers move on to other projects, or they go in new directions, so it's something new, something fresh, and then you're not with the fresh. You like the old characters better and the way they used to be. And Rachel character, her character became more, I don't know what I should do, and it just was like so inconsistent. Like there was no growth really for her. And she was always chasing something, and Lisa Kudrow character was still the same old independent, do whatever I want type. And then you have others such as you have other people such as like Matthew Perry's character. Why everyone was so caught up in the Rachel Green, nobody was noticing what was happening with him. He was gaining weight, losing weight dramatically. Like his clothes wouldn't even fit him anymore. People was like, man, like what's going on here? Matthew Perry is something's wrong with him. And he was battling drugs, he had drug addiction, and some of the episodes he was so messed up, going off drugs. He was staying out late, the tabloids, everything was getting to him. His relationships weren't working out. And then every time he turns around, he's got a camera in his face. He's on Star Magazine. What's going on? The party animal, Matthew Perry, he's destroying his life. It's a lot of pressure. And a lot of people are not equipped to handle that. Some people are, but most of them, the majority of the people in the world, they're not equipped to handle that type of attention. And if you're not equipped to handle it, you can get absorbed by it and get swallowed. And that's what was happening to him, and he was drowning. Then one night things got really bad, and the studios had to force him into rehab. He delayed a couple of shoots, and they had to shoot scenes that he was supposed to be in, and he wasn't even there. He wasn't even in this shoot. They had to go back and film it and shoot it later. They had a stand-in double, but there was some episodes he wasn't even in because he was so messed up on drugs. But he was able to get control of it, and they was able to get him some help, and thank God for that, because it could have been a lot worse, a lot worse. Now, me on the other hand, I sat there and watched a couple of those episodes and said, "Ooh, this is not good." And this was like near the end because they was gonna end this show. It's too expensive, so it's like, okay, we gotta bring this show to an end. It's only gonna get more expensive if we keep this up. So after that ninth year, that was gonna be the final season. Then they ended up saying, "Man, people were still strongly supporting the show because they totally blew up the Rachel and Joey thing. Thank God, people blew that up. People hated that, and once they got the feedback, they was like, we gotta blow this up. They were right." So when they blew that up, they knew that the only matchup would be is putting Rachel's character with David Schwimmer and having the characters leave the loft and everybody's moving on to their lives. That was the key. That was the way to go. That was the way to move. it ended on a great note. You know, it ended with everyone going in the direction you would want them to go. And recently you saw the reunion pop up. I know you guys saw that, so it is what it is, man. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to support the page, hit the Cash App. And my name's Carcino on the Cash App. I hope you loved it. If you like Friends, hopefully this was a great reminder of things that were going on at the time. ABC had a great show in their hands. They lucked up with this one. And I'm done. Thank you once again.